Being careless kills in COVID-19. It does. We actually have to be more careful rather than careless. We're actually scaring people. So how can we actually avoid scaring people during COVID-19? I'm going to answer that. But first, I want to look into a study that was entitled The Emotional Path to Action. Empathy promotes physical distancing during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this study was really good. It looked at several things. But first, it looked at the fact that, well, in 2008, it was easy just to say to people, keep calm and carry on. And I suppose that was a kind of governmental line as such. That was a thing that could be said to people and, just to be actually promoted with an actual mindset as such. So during the pandemic of COVID-19, it was far more important, in fact, to realise that being calm was just not all that you could say to people, to societies, to cultures, to communities, to groups of people as such. Something more was needed. So the Centre for Disease Control and Prevention of the World Health Organization realised that physical distancing or social distancing was required. So it was far deeper. There was more action required rather than just words as such. Now, I mentioned empathy, and what is this whole empathy thing? Empathy, according to the authors of this particular study, can be defined as an umbrella term capturing the range of a person's responses to another individual's experiences. Now, if you think about that for a second and just break it down, it's an umbrella term, so it's more than one thing. And it's a range of a person's responses. So again, a range, there's different ways of looking at things. And it's how you and how we respond to other people and their particular experience. And it's timely as well. It depends on a particular point in time. So being able to respond and look at the range of things that a person's going through at a certain time, this is the whole collective word of what empathy is as such. Now, what these particular authors did, these researchers, these great researchers as such, they looked at not one, not two, but three particular studies in the UK, the USA, and Germany. And they wanted to find what was the whole kind of motivation for physical distancing as brought out by the governments and the World Health Organization. In the first of these studies, well, first off, they carried it out on St. Patrick's Day, and I'm Irish, so St. Patrick's Day means a lot to me. It's the national holiday. But with that in mind, I can actually recall St. Patrick's Day 2020 and what I was doing. And it was a very wet day in Ireland, but on that same day, that was the first of these studies that was carried out by these researchers. So on the 17th and 18th of March, they collected data from over 300 people in Germany, and they just analysed them and studied them as such with regard to this whole COVID-19 pandemic and, well, the need for empathy. So in study 3, the researchers, they did the exact same thing as study 2. They looked at, this time though, 359 respondents to their study. So after doing 2 studies around the same time, around the middle of March, they started going to, of course, study number 3, because they wanted to have this comparison, you see. They wanted to be able to compare with study 1, 2 and 3, the slight differences and people's reactions towards this whole empathetic mindset and their actions as well of empathy towards other people. So in study 3, this was designed so that the knowledge gained from the first 2 studies could test whether people could actually, well, actionably and physically use empathy as such itself. So in study 3, what they looked at and what they actually did was they gave people the video. Now the video was empathetic as such. They looked at the fact that in the video a 91-year-old man had a huge issue. He couldn't go and see his wife. He couldn't visit his wife during the lockdown, during the COVID-19 lockdown. Now remember, this and these 3 studies were actually taken in the early weeks as such of lockdown in America, in the United Kingdom, and of course in Germany. So it was rather early days, mid-March to late March, and this particular video of the 91-year-old man showing emotion, explaining to anybody who would want to watch him that, well, he could not and would not be able to see his wife, had an impact on people. This was seen from the 3rd study and the results of the 3rd study, more importantly. Now, if we think about it for a second and break that down, a 91-year-old man, how many times would you actually see a 91-year-old man on camera? Check out YouTube, check out Facebook, check out Snapchat, check out all the social medias, Instagram. Is there a 91-year-old Instagrammer? Maybe there is. But rarely you will see, because there's other things going on in a 91-year-old man's mind. In fact, survival is one of them. So buying the new trendy mobile phone or smartphone or iPhone is not exactly up his street. What is up his street, though, in this case, was his wife. And the want and the need to actually visit her. And if you think about it as well, how long he would have been there in that marriage with his wife, perhaps 60 years. Now that's a heck of a lot of time, it's a lifetime. And many people would be happy with the 60-year-old lifetime. But the deep love, the deep concern he had made him so strong enough to want to get out there in the middle of a pandemic and walk a road in order to visit his wife, who I'm sure was in some way ailing or had some sort of problem or issue in the fact that he could not actually live with her. So that whole mesh of emotional turmoil was put into this particular video. And in the 3rd study, it was shown to people and it had a difference. The difference was that people resonated with this video. They started looking at it from an emotional context. So the study's outcome realised then, not just study 1, but study 2 and study 3, the 3 of them together, and in comparing them, they realised that empathy, and not just empathy and looking and hearing about empathy, but actionable empathy and emotional, effective empathy was really, really important. So in study 3, in comparison to the first 2 studies, they realised that the video of the 91-year-old man had an impact. It really impacted people, and people could be seen to actually, well, benefit and use this whole strategy of social distancing, of physical distancing, of using the 2 meters. So if we can go forward with this, what can we do? I asked to you, what are the fears? Well, we know that there's fears out there with Covid-19, and the further you go into a pandemic and the more economic issues that come up, and recessionary issues and so on, there's more fears and there's more anxieties. So in looking at that, remember there's other people around you that are feeling it. Now I know, maybe you're feeling it yourself, and maybe your family is feeling it, maybe your friends have felt it, maybe you've had deaths in the family, and I'm sorry, I really am, I truly am, all about that. But life must go on in some regard, and with a pandemic and with, of course, Covid-19 still around, the reality is we have to be aware of other people around us. So in being aware of other people around us, what this study has taught us is that we really need to actually continue to look out for people and to see things from their points of view. Let's just refrain back just for a moment, back to the whole definition of empathy with this study and these 3 studies. And it was, of course, an umbrella term for the ranges of experiences, essentially, of other people. So you don't know, I don't know, nobody knows really essentially what a person is looking up online. They might be looking up specific fears, they might be looking up specific anxieties, depressions and so on. So we need to open ourselves out as people to everybody, to our partner, to our friend, to even our accountant, even our boss, because we don't know how they're feeling. We don't know the exact minute pressures that they're under. Covid-19 has changed the world in such a massive way. Think of the 91-year-old, look at his life, his whole world was wrapped up around his wife. Perhaps his survival strategy was wrapped up around this daily or regular visit to this person in his life. What is other people's survival strategies? How can we look at them? How can we accept them and their plight for what it is right now during COVID-19? Well, however we do it, we're going to do it in a good way, empathetically. And if we do it that way, and we look at the actionable ways of the video and how it really impacted upon people, and if we look at the way that we can communicate to others how this can be a good thing, that we can actually deepen our way of communicating and looking out for others. If we can do all of that, we're really going to make the world a better place, and not just your world and my world. So there you go. That's what we can learn from that brilliant story. Until next time, thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please do. And well, have a wonderful day.